The morning sun rose over New Haven Colony like it did every other day. Golden light spread across the green fields and simple homes that stretched for miles in every direction. Children ran through the streets on their way to school. Farmers checked their crops. Families sat together for breakfast. It was an ordinary day on an ordinary world, and nobody knew it would be their last. Lieutenant Kevin Shaw stood on the porch of his sister's small farmhouse, holding a cup of coffee and watching his niece and nephew play in the yard. He had taken leave from his posting on the battleship Ironclad to visit them. His sister Amy had been asking him to come for months. "Uncle Kevin, watch this," shouted his nephew Danny as he tried to do a cartwheel and fell over in the grass. Kevin laughed and clapped. "Almost got it, buddy. Try again." His niece Emma, who was only 4 years old, ran over and grabbed his leg. "Uncle Kevin, will you stay forever?" He knelt down and ruffled her hair. "Not forever, sweetheart, but I'll stay as long as I can." Amy came out with her own coffee and stood beside him. She was 3 years younger than Kevin, with the same brown eyes and easy smile. Her husband had died 2 years ago in a mining accident, and she had raised the children alone since then. "Thank you for coming," she said quietly. "They've missed you." "I've missed them too," Kevin replied. "I've missed all of this. Sometimes I forget what peace feels like." New Haven was home to 2.3 million people. It was one of humanity's most successful colonies, founded 60 years ago on a world with perfect conditions for farming. The people here lived simple lives, far from the politics and conflicts of the wider galaxy. They had no military bases, no weapons factories. They were just ordinary people trying to build good lives. At exactly 9:15 in the morning, the sky turned dark. Kevin looked up and saw something that made his blood freeze. Dozens of massive ships were descending through the atmosphere, blocking out the sun. They were unlike anything he had ever seen before. Dark metal hulls covered in strange symbols. Weapons that glowed with purple energy. Ships built for one purpose only: destruction. "Amy," he said, his voice barely a whisper, "take the children inside, now." Before she could move, the first blast hit. A beam of purple light struck the city center 5 miles away. The explosion was so bright that Kevin had to shield his eyes. When he looked again, a mushroom cloud was rising into the sky. The sound hit them a moment later, a roar so loud it shook the ground beneath their feet. Emma started crying. Danny stood frozen, staring at the distant destruction with wide eyes. "Move!" Kevin shouted. He grabbed Emma and pushed Amy toward the house. "We need to get to the shelter." Across the colony, sirens began to wail. Emergency broadcasts flooded every screen and speaker. But there was nothing anyone could do. The alien ships spread across the sky like a swarm of insects, and they began firing on everything below. Kevin watched as beam after beam struck the surface. Homes, schools, hospitals, farms. Nothing was spared. The aliens were not trying to conquer New Haven. They were trying to erase it. He pulled up his military communicator and tried to contact anyone who could help. The Ironclad, Earth Command, anyone, but all he got was static. The aliens were jamming all signals. Who are they? Amy screamed as they ran toward the underground shelter behind the house. "I don't know," Kevin said. And that was the truth. He had never seen these ships before. He had never heard of any species that attacked without warning, without communication, without any attempt at negotiation. They reached the shelter door just as another blast hit nearby. The shockwave threw them to the ground. Kevin covered Emma with his body and felt heat wash over them. When he looked up, the farmhouse was gone. Just a burning crater where it had stood moments before. "No," Amy whispered. "No, no, no." Kevin pulled her to her feet and pushed her toward the shelter. "Keep moving. We have to keep moving." Inside the shelter, they found about 30 other people, Neighbors, friends, families with children. Everyone was terrified. Everyone was crying. The ground shook constantly as more blasts struck the surface above. Kevin's communicator finally crackled to life. A weak signal was getting through. "This is Evacuation Shuttle 7, said a desperate voice. "We are launching from the eastern spaceport. All survivors, please make your way to evacuation points. Repeat, all survivors." "There's still a chance," Kevin said. "The spaceport is only 2 miles from here. If we can get there, we can escape." They waited for a break in the bombardment, then ran. The world outside was unrecognizable. The beautiful green fields were now burning wastelands. The sky was filled with smoke and fire. Bodies lay everywhere. Kevin tried to shield the children's eyes, but there was too much death to avoid. They were halfway to the spaceport when Amy stumbled. Kevin turned back to help her and saw that she was holding her side. Blood was seeping through her fingers. "Shrapnel," she gasped. "I didn't even feel it." "You're going to be okay," Kevin said, even though he could see the wound was serious. "Just keep moving. We're almost there." Amy grabbed his arm and looked into his eyes. Her face was pale, and she was breathing hard. "Take the children," she said. "Promise me you'll take care of them." "We're all getting out of here," Kevin insisted. "All of us." But Amy's legs gave out. She collapsed to the ground, and no matter how hard Kevin tried to lift her, she could not stand. The children were screaming and crying, and the spaceport was so close, and the alien ships were still firing, and there was no time. There was no time. "Go," Amy whispered. "Please, save them." Kevin looked at his sister, then at his niece and nephew. The hardest choice he would ever make took only a second. He picked up both children, one in each arm, and ran. He did not look back. He could not look back. He just ran, carrying the screaming children, weaving through debris and fire and death. The spaceport appeared ahead, and he saw a shuttle with its engines running, ready to launch. "Wait!" he screamed. "Wait!" He threw himself through the closing door just as the shuttle lifted off. Through the window, he watched New Haven shrink below them. Watched the alien ships continue their bombardment. Watched his sister's world burn. The children cried for their mother. Kevin held them close and said nothing. There were no words for what had happened. There were no words for what they had lost. The shuttle escaped into space, joining a handful of other survivors. Out of 2.3 million people, only 12,000 made it out alive. Kevin recorded everything he had seen. Every moment, every horror, every death. He transmitted it all to Earth with one message. They gave no warning. They showed no mercy. They killed everyone. On Earth, General Christopher Lane watched the footage in silence. When it ended, he turned to his staff and spoke 2 words that would change the galaxy forever. "Wake everything." The sleeping giant had opened its eyes, and it was angry. The Galactic Council Chamber was the largest structure in known space. It floated in neutral territory, a massive ring station where representatives from over 200 species gathered to discuss matters of peace and war. Today, the chamber was filled with tension. Ambassador Sylvine of the Moravian species stood at the central podium, her silver skin reflecting the harsh lights above. She had requested an emergency session, and the council had granted it reluctantly. Most species did not care much about humans. They were a young race, barely a century old in space travel. They had few allies and even fewer friends among the older civilizations. "Honored representatives," Sylvine began, her voice calm but urgent. "I have called this session to discuss a matter of extreme importance. 3 days ago, the Zalkari Dominion attacked and destroyed the human colony of New Haven. 2.3 million humans were killed." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Some representatives looked concerned. Others looked bored. A few actually smiled. "This is not a council matter," said one of the Zelkari representatives, a tall creature with dark scales and cold eyes. "The humans were expanding into territory claimed by the Dominion. We defended what was ours." "New Haven was established 60 years ago," Sylvain replied. "The Zelkari made no claim to that system until last month. And even if there was a dispute, nothing justifies the murder of millions of civilians." "They were warned," the Zelkari said dismissively. "They did not listen." Sylvain's eyes narrowed. "No warning was ever sent. We have checked all communication records." The first contact between the Zelkari and New Haven was the bombardment itself. The chamber erupted in arguments. Some species supported the Zelkari, claiming that humans have been too aggressive in their expansion. Others condemned the attack, but offered no solutions. Most simply did not care enough to take a side. Sylvain raised her hand for silence. When the noise died down, she spoke again, and her voice was different now. Harder, more serious. "I did not call this session to debate whether the attack was justified. I called it to warn you about what comes next." The chamber went quiet. "I have studied humans for decades," Sylvain continued. "I was present during their first contact with the Moravian people. I have observed their wars, their culture, their history. And I am telling you now, with absolute certainty, that the Zelkari have made a terrible mistake." Laughter came from the Zelkari section. "The humans are nothing," the representative said. "A minor species with a small fleet. They have perhaps 200 warships. The Dominion has over 1,000. If they try to retaliate, we will crush them as easily as we crushed their colony." "You do not understand," Sylvain said. "You see their current fleet and think you know their strength. But humans do not fight the way other species fight. They do not calculate acceptable losses. They do not surrender when the odds are against them. They adapt. They endure. They find ways to win that no other species would ever consider." She activated a holographic display, showing images from human history. 112 years ago, humans fought their first war against an alien species. The Corvan hierarchy attacked Earth with a fleet of 50 ships. Humans had no fleet at all, just ground defenses and primitive spacecraft. The Corvan expected victory within days. The display showed burning cities, desperate battles, and human soldiers fighting against impossible odds. The war lasted 3 years. The humans lost billions of their own people, but they kept fighting. They reverse-engineered Corvan technology. They built their own ships from wreckage. And in the end, they destroyed the entire Corvan fleet. Every single ship. The Corvan hierarchy surrendered unconditionally and has never threatened Earth again. The chamber was silent now. Even the Zelkari representative had stopped smiling. 40 years ago, Sylvain continued, a group of human marines were trapped on Proxima Station during a conflict with the Velthan Confederacy. 300 humans against 10,000 Velthan soldiers. The siege lasted 6 months. When reinforcements finally arrived, 240 humans were still alive. The Velthan forces had been reduced to fewer than 500. She paused, letting the numbers sink in. Humans call themselves the children of a death world. Their planet is covered in predators, natural disasters, extreme temperatures, and toxic environments. They evolved to survive in conditions that would kill most species within hours. They are stronger than they look, faster than they look, and far more dangerous than they look. The Zelkari representative stood up angrily. Enough of this fear-mongering. The Dominion will not be intimidated by stories of past battles. Humans are soft. They care too much about their individual lives. They will not risk total war over one colony. Sylvain turned to face him directly. You killed their children. You burned their families. You destroyed their homes. You did not defeat their military or challenge their government. You murdered innocent people. A voice dropped to almost a whisper, but it carried through the entire chamber. Humans have a concept they call family. It is more important to them than territory, resources, or even survival. When you threaten their families, they do not calculate costs and benefits. They do not consider strategic advantages. They simply destroy whatever threatened their loved ones. Completely, permanently, without mercy. A holographic image appeared showing Earth. The blue and green planet looked peaceful, beautiful, almost innocent. As we speak, Earth has gone silent. All human diplomatic channels have been closed. All communication with human space has stopped. Our intelligence reports indicate that they are mobilizing every ship, every soldier, every weapon they have. Let them come, the Zelkari said. We will be ready. No, Sylvine said sadly. You will not be. Because humans do not fight to win battles. They fight to end wars. And they will not stop until the Zelkari Dominion can never threaten them again. The session ended without any resolution. Most species dismissed Sylvine's warnings as exaggeration. The Zelkari returned to their territory, confident in their superior numbers and technology. 2 weeks later, the first reports arrived. Human ships had begun gathering at the edge of Zelkari space. Not 200 ships, as the Zelkari had expected. 400. And among them were 12 massive vessels that no one had ever seen before. Ships so large that they dwarfed everything else in the fleet. And at the center of the formation was something even more terrifying. A single weapon platform, shaped like a hammer, carrying a device that could destabilize stars. The humans had named it the Hammer of Soul. Sylvine received the report in her private chambers. She read it twice, then set it down and closed her eyes. I warned them, she whispered to no one. I tried to warn them all, but no one had listened. And now it was too late. Across the galaxy, the human fleet began its final jump toward Zelkari space. They carried with them the anger of 2.3 million dead, the grief of 12,000 survivors, the fury of an entire species that had been pushed too far. Earth's children were coming, and they were bringing the fire with them. The United Earth Assembly had not seen a full gathering in over 50 years. Every nation, every colony, every station sent representatives. The massive hall was filled with thousands of people, all watching General Christopher Lane as he walked to the podium. Behind him, a screen showed the footage from New Haven, the burning cities, the fleeing civilians, the ships that fired on evacuation shuttles, the 2.3 million names of the dead, scrolling endlessly. Lane was 62 years old. He had served in 3 different conflicts during his career. He had seen death and destruction before, but nothing had prepared him for New Haven. We all know why we are here, he began, his voice heavy with grief. We all know what happened. What I am asking today is simple. I am asking for authorization to respond. A representative from the European Federation stood up. What kind of response are you proposing, General? Lane looked directly at her. Total war. The chamber exploded with noise. Some shouted in support. Others shouted in protest. Many simply shouted because they did not know what else to do. Lane raised his hand, and slowly the noise died down. I understand your concerns, he said. War is terrible. War is costly. War means death and suffering for everyone involved. But I need you to understand something. The Zelkari did not attack a military target. They did not attack a strategic position. They attacked a farming colony. They murdered families. They killed children. His voice grew harder. If we do not respond, we are telling the galaxy that human lives do not matter. We are telling every species out there that they can kill us without consequences. We are telling them that we are prey. He paused, letting his words sink in. We are not prey. The vote was unanimous. For the first time in human history, every nation and colony agreed on a single action. Total war against the Zelkari Dominion. 3 weeks later, Admiral Daniel Porter stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Constellation. He was looking at the largest fleet humanity had ever assembled. 400 warships, ranging from small destroyers to massive battleships. 12 planet crackers, ships designed to break apart entire worlds. And one weapon that had never been used before, the hammer of Soldat Captain. Lavra Bennett's voice came through the communication system. Admiral, all ships report ready. The fleet is yours. Porter nodded slowly. He was 58 years old, a career military officer who had hoped to retire in peace. Instead, he was leading humanity's vengeance. Thank you, Captain. Maintain formation and await further orders. He turned away from the window and walked to the tactical room where his senior officers were gathered. Among them was Lieutenant Kevin Shaw, who had been assigned to the fleet at his own request. His face was hard, his eyes empty. He had not smiled since New Haven. Dr. Michelle Grant was also present. She was a xenobiologist who had spent her career studying alien species. She had been pulled from her research to provide critical intelligence on the Zelkari. What do we know about their defenses? Porter asked. Dr. Grant activated a holographic display showing the Zelkari home system. Their fleet is concentrated here, around their main planet. Zelkar Prime. We estimate 600 warships, plus orbital defense platforms and ground-based weapons. They outnumber us, one of the officers said. Numbers are not everything, Captain Bennett replied. Our ships are more advanced. Our tactics are better. And our people are motivated in a way theirs are not. Porter nodded. What about the weapon? Is it ready? Dr. Grant hesitated before answering. The Hammer of Soul is fully operational. It was designed to destabilize stars, causing them to go supernova. If we deploy it against the Zelkari sun, it will destroy everything in their system. Every planet, every station, every ship that doesn't escape in time. How many casualties are we talking about? Porter asked. If we give them no warning, approximately 8 billion Zelkari will die. The room went silent. 8 billion lives. Even after what they had done, that number was staggering. Lieutenant Shaw spoke up. They killed 2.3 million of us. They fired on evacuation shuttles carrying children. They deserve whatever we give them. Porter looked at him with something like sadness. Maybe they do, Lieutenant. But do we deserve to become like them? Shaw's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Porter turned to Dr. Grant. Is there any alternative? Any way to defeat them without using the weapon? We can engage their fleet directly, she said. With our technological advantage, we would probably win. But we would lose at least half our ships, maybe more. And even if we win, we only defeat their military. The Dominion would still exist. They could rebuild. They could attack us again. And if we use the weapon, the Zelkari Dominion ends. Permanently. No species in the galaxy will ever threaten humanity again, because they will all know what we are capable of. Porter was quiet for a long time. He thought about the footage from New Haven, the burning homes, the screaming children, the bodies lying in the streets. He thought about his own grandchildren, safe on Earth, and how easily they could have been among the dead. We will give them one chance, he finally said. When we reach their system, I will offer them the opportunity to surrender unconditionally. If they refuse, we use the weapon. And if they accept? Captain Bennett asked. Then we take their fleet, their weapons, and their ability to ever wage war again. Their leaders will face trial for what they did. And the Dominion will live under our supervision for the next century. Shaw stood up angrily. That's too generous. They don't deserve mercy. Porter looked at him calmly. This isn't about what they deserve, Lieutenant. It's about what we can live with. I will not kill 8 billion people without giving them a choice. He stood and walked toward the door, then paused and looked back. But make no mistake. If they refuse, if they choose to fight, I will use the weapon. I will end them, and I will not lose a single moment of sleep over it. He left the room. The officers looked at each other in silence. Captain Bennett finally spoke. You heard the Admiral. Prepare for departure. We jumped to Zelkari space in 6 hours. The fleet began its final preparations. Ships loaded weapons, charged shields, and powered up engines. 400 vessels, carrying the hopes and anger of all humanity, ready to deliver judgment. Kevin Shaw stood alone in the observation deck, watching the stars. In his hand, he held a small photograph. His sister Amy, smiling, with Danny and Emma in her arms. The only family he had left in the universe. I'm coming, he whispered. I'm coming for all of you. He put the photograph away and walked to his station. In a few hours, they would reach Zelkari space. In a few hours, the galaxy would learn what happened when you hurt humanity's children. The storm was coming, and nothing would survive it. The human fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Zelkari system like a wave of steel and fire. 400 warships spread across the darkness, their weapons charged and their crews ready. In the center of the formation, the Hammer of Soul waited silently, its terrible purpose known to everyone. Admiral Porter stood on the bridge of the constellation, watching the tactical display. The Zelkari had already detected them. Enemy ships were moving to intercept, forming a defensive line between the humans and their homeworld. Contact from the Zelkari flagship, his communications officer reported. They're demanding we leave their space immediately. Porter smiled grimly. Open a channel. I want to speak to their commander directly. The screen flickered and the face of Overlord Vraxith appeared. He was massive, even for a Zelkari, with scales as black as space and eyes that burned with arrogance. Behind him, Porter could see the bridge of his flagship, filled with officers who looked equally confident. Human, Vraxith said, his voice dripping with contempt. You have made a grave mistake coming here. Turn back now, and we may allow some of you to live. Porter kept his expression neutral. Overlord Vraxith, I am Admiral Daniel Porter of the United Earth Fleet. I am here to offer you one chance to surrender. Vraxith laughed. It was a harsh, ugly sound. Surrender? You come to our home with 400 ships, and you expect us to surrender? We have 600 warships waiting for you. We will destroy your fleet and then finish what we started at your pathetic colony. You killed 2.3 million innocent people, Porter said quietly. Civilians, families, children. They posed no threat to you. They had no weapons, no defenses. You murdered them anyway. They were in our way, Vraxith replied dismissively. Humans spread like insects. We simply exterminated a nest. Porter's hands tightened into fists, but his voice remained calm. I'm going to give you 1 hour to consider your position. Surrender unconditionally. Hand over the commanders responsible for New Haven, and accept permanent demilitarization. If you do this, your people will live. And if we refuse? Porter gestured to someone off-screen. The tactical display behind him changed, showing the Hammer of Soul in all its terrifying detail. This weapon can destabilize your sun. If I give the order, your entire system will be destroyed. Every planet, every station, everyone who doesn't escape in time. For the first time, Vraxith's confidence seemed to waver. He studied the weapon on the display, his eyes narrowing. You're bluffing. Humans don't have the stomach for genocide. You killed our children, Porter said. You destroyed our families. You gave us no warning and showed no mercy. Do you really want to test what we have the stomach for? He leaned forward, his eyes hard as stone. 1 hour, Overlord. Use it wisely. The channel closed. Porter turned to his officers, who were watching him with a mixture of admiration and fear. Prepare for battle. If they don't surrender in 1 hour, we attack. The hour passed in tense silence. Human crews ran final checks on their weapons. Pilots climbed into their fighters. Soldiers loaded their rifles and prayed to whatever gods they believed in. On the ironclad, Captain Lavra Bennett addressed her crew. "This is the moment we've been waiting for," she said. "The moment we answer what they did to New Haven. I know some of you have doubts. I know some of you wonder if we're doing the right thing. But remember this. They started this war. They killed millions of innocent people. We're going to finish it." Lieutenant Kevin Shaw sat at his tactical station, monitoring the enemy fleet. His hands were steady, his mind clear. He had no doubts. He had no fear. He had only a cold, burning need for justice. When the hour ended, Vraxith's face appeared on screen again. "We reject your ultimatum," he said. "The Zelkari Dominion does not surrender to insects. Come and face us, if you dare." Admiral Porter nodded slowly. "So be it." He gave the order, and the human fleet surged forward. The battle began with a storm of weapons fire. Human ships moved in perfect coordination, their tactics refined through decades of conflict. Zelkari vessels tried to hold their defensive line, but they were not prepared for the fury they faced. Captain Bennett led the ironclad straight into the heart of the enemy formation. Her ship's guns blazed continuously, tearing through Zelkari shields and hulls like paper. Around her, other human ships did the same, each crew fighting with the memory of New Haven burning in their hearts. "Target their command ships first," Bennett ordered. "Take out their leadership, and the rest will fall apart." Lieutenant Shaw tracked the enemy flagship through the chaos of battle. Vraxith's ship was massive, heavily armored, surrounded by escorts. But Shaw had studied its design for weeks. He knew its weaknesses. "I have a solution," he reported. "Their ventral shields have a gap near the reactor housing. A concentrated strike there will penetrate." "Do it," Bennett commanded. Shaw coordinated the attack with surgical precision. 3 human destroyers focused their fire on a single point, exactly where he had identified. The Zelkari flagship shuddered as explosions tore through its lower decks. But it wasn't Vraxith's ship. It was Warlord Denek's vessel, the commander who had personally ordered the attack on New Haven. Shaw opened a communication channel to the crippled ship. His voice was cold as ice. "This is Lieutenant Kevin Shaw of the human vessel Ironclad. You destroyed my family. You killed my sister. You murdered her children. This is for them." He fired the final shot himself. Denek's ship exploded in a brilliant flash of light, taking everyone aboard with it. Shaw felt nothing. No satisfaction. No relief. Just emptiness. The battle continued for 3 hours. Human ships swarmed through the Zelkari defenses, destroying everything in their path. The enemy fleet, despite its numerical advantage, could not match human coordination and determination. By the end, over 400 Zelkari warships had been destroyed. Human losses were less than 50 vessels. The orbital defenses around Zelkar Prime had been reduced to debris. The Zelkari military was broken. Admiral Porter contacted Vraxith one final time. The Overlord's bridge was damaged, smoking, filled with dead and dying crew members. Vraxith himself had been wounded, dark blood dripping from a gash on his face. "It's over," Porter said. "Your fleet is destroyed. Your defenses are gone. Surrender now, and your people will be spared." Vraxith stared at him with pure hatred. "You think you've won? This changes nothing. Even if you destroy us, other species will see what you've done. They will unite against you. They will wipe humanity from the galaxy. Perhaps, Porter acknowledged. Or perhaps they will learn not to make the same mistake you did. We will never surrender to humans, Raxith spat. Do your worst. Porter was silent for a long moment. He thought about mercy. He thought about the future. He thought about 2.3 million names scrolling on a memorial that should never have existed. Very well, he said softly. Activate the Hammer of Soul. Behind the human fleet, the massive weapon platform began to move. Its engines fired, pushing it toward the Zelkari sun. Its systems powered up, preparing to deliver the final blow. Vraxith's eyes widened as he realized what was happening. For the first time, real fear crossed his face. You wouldn't, he whispered. You can't. Watch me, Porter replied, and the channel went dead. The Hammer of Soul moved through space like a messenger of death. It was the largest weapon humanity had ever built, designed for a purpose so terrible that its creators had hoped it would never be used. Now it drifted toward the Zelkari sun, carrying the fate of billions in its metal heart. Admiral Porter watched from the bridge of the constellation. His face was calm, but his hands trembled slightly at his sides. He had given the order. He had made the choice. Whatever happened next would be his responsibility forever. Dr. Michelle Grant stood beside him, monitoring the weapon systems on her display. The hammer will reach optimal position in 47 minutes, she reported. Once activated, the star will begin destabilizing immediately. Total supernova will occur within 6 hours. And the evacuation? Zelkari civilian ships are already fleeing the system. Our fleet is not targeting them. Porter nodded. That had been his one condition. Military vessels would be destroyed. But civilians, even enemy civilians, would be allowed to escape if they could. Across the system, chaos reigned. Zelkari transport ships launched from every planet and station, carrying anyone who could reach them. Families scrambled for seats on overcrowded vessels. Parents held their children and prayed for salvation. The scene was heartbreakingly familiar. Captain Bennett reported from the ironclad. Admiral, we're detecting thousands of civilian ships trying to escape. Some of them are damaged and won't make it out of the system in time. Help them, Porter ordered without hesitation. Sir? I said help them. Send rescue ships. Tow the damaged vessels. Get as many civilians out as possible. There was a moment of silence on the channel. Then Bennett's voice came back, filled with something that might have been respect. Understood, Admiral. Rescue operations commencing. Human ships that had been destroying the Zelkari military moments ago now moved to assist fleeing civilians. Rescue crews pulled families from crippled transports. Medical teams treated the wounded. Humans and Zelkari worked side by side to save as many lives as possible. Lieutenant Kevin Shaw watched from his station on the ironclad. He felt confused, angry, empty. Part of him wanted every Zelkari to burn for what they had done. But another part, a smaller part, remembered that his sister Amy would never have wanted innocent people to die because of her. He looked at the photograph in his pocket. Amy's smile. Danny's laughter. Emma's tiny hands reaching up to him. I don't know what to feel anymore. He whispered to himself. The Hammer of Soul reached its position. Dr. Grant's voice echoed through the fleet. Weapon is in position, awaiting final authorization. Admiral Porter closed his eyes for a moment. He thought about New Haven, about the footage he had watched 1,000 times, about the children who had died without understanding why, about the galaxy that needed to learn a lesson it would never forget. He opened his eyes. Activate the weapon. A beam of pure energy shot from the hammer into the heart of the Zelkari sun. At first, nothing seemed to happen. The star looked the same as always, a burning ball of fire that had warmed this system for billions of years. Then it began to change. Dark spots appeared on the surface. The star's light flickered and pulsed. Deep within its core, forces beyond imagination were tearing it apart. The weapon had worked perfectly. "Stellar destabilization confirmed," Dr. Grant reported, her voice barely above a whisper. "Supernova will occur in approximately 5 hours and 43 minutes. Admiral Porter activated a broadcast to the entire Zelkari system. His voice reached every ship, every station, every planet that still had power. "This is Admiral Porter of the United Earth Fleet. Your sun has been destabilized. Everyone who can reach escape velocity must leave now. We will not fire on civilian vessels. We will assist any ships that need help. But anyone who remains in this system will die." He paused, letting his words sink in. "This did not have to happen. We offered you peace. We offered you mercy. You chose war. You chose death. Remember this day. Remember what happens when you harm humanity's children." The broadcast ended. The evacuation continued with desperate speed. Over the next 5 hours, 3 billion Zelkari managed to escape. Human ships helped where they could, saving thousands who would have died otherwise. But not everyone could be saved. 5 billion Zelkari remained on their planets, unable to reach the fleeing ships in time. When the sun finally exploded, it was the most beautiful and terrible sight anyone had ever witnessed. A wave of light and fire spread outward at incredible speed, consuming everything in its path. Zelkar Prime, home of the Zelkari civilization for 10,000 years, was vaporized in seconds. The other planets followed moments later. When it was over, nothing remained. The Zelkari system had been erased from existence. The Galactic Council watched the supernova from their station, millions of light years away. The recording had been transmitted by human ships, along with a message that was addressed to every species and known space. Ambassador Sylvian played the message for the assembled representatives. Admiral Porter's face appeared on the screen, tired and sad, but unbroken. "People of the galaxy, I am Admiral Daniel Porter of the United Earth Fleet. You have all seen what happened here today. You have seen what humanity is capable of when pushed too far." His voice hardened. "We did not want this. We came to the stars seeking peace and friendship. We built colonies not to conquer, but to explore and grow. We wanted to be your neighbors, your partners, your allies. But the Zelkari attacked us without provocation. They murdered millions of innocent people. They killed our children. And when we offered them a chance to surrender, they refused. Let this be a lesson to all of you. Humanity will never strike first. We will always seek peace before war. We will always offer mercy before punishment." His eyes burned with quiet intensity. "But if you harm our families, if you threaten our children, if you mistake our kindness for weakness, we will respond. And our response will be absolute. This is not a threat. This is a promise. A promise that will be kept for as long as humanity exists." The message ended. The council chamber was completely silent. Finally, Sylvian spoke. "I warned you. None of you listened. Now the Zelkari are gone, and the galaxy has learned what humanity truly is." One by one, the representatives began sending messages to their governments. Every species in the galaxy reached the same conclusion. Humanity was not to be threatened. Humanity was not to be attacked. Humanity was to be treated with respect and caution. Peace treaties were drafted. Trade agreements were proposed. Diplomatic missions were sent to Earth. Within a year, humanity had gone from a minor species to one of the most respected powers in the galaxy. On Earth, a memorial was built for the victims of New Haven. 2.3 million names were carved into black stone, surrounding a single flame that would burn forever. People came from every human world to pay their respects, to remember those who had been lost. Lieutenant Kevin Shaw stood before the memorial on a quiet evening, holding his photograph of Amy and her children. He had been promoted for his actions in the battle, but he felt no pride. He felt only grief and a strange, hollow peace. "I couldn't save you," he whispered, "but I made sure it will never happen again. No one will hurt our people like that ever again." He placed the photograph at the base of the memorial, next to thousands of other mementos left by grieving families. Then he stood, saluted, and walked away. Behind him, a new plaque had been added to the memorial. It contained only 2 words, but they said everything that needed to be said. Never again. The galaxy had learned its lesson, and humanity would make sure it was never forgotten. In the darkness of space, human ships continued their patrols. They guarded the colonies, protected the trade routes, and watched for any threat that might arise. They were not conquerors. They were not tyrants. They were simply guardians, ready to defend their people against any danger. And the galaxy, having witnessed what humans could do, made sure to never give them a reason to do it again. The children of Earth had proven their strength. Now they would prove their wisdom, and the universe would be better for it.